You are now tuned into Armor Up Athletics, hosted by Phillip, Leviner, and Matt Quinn.
And we are back on Armor Up Athletics, episode number 4. Put your fours up, Phillip Leviner. It's time to go. This episode, the power of kindness. In a world that often celebrates strength, speed, and toughness, we want to look at a different kind of power tonight. We want to look at the quiet, world-changing power of kindness. And Phillip, I'm going to pass it on over to you and kind of intro why this topic came up for us and why God led us in this direction.
Well, every week, Matt, we talk about us trying to pick a topic, and it never works, right? We can't never find one, and then out of the blue, the Lord drops it in our laps, and we just kind of go with it. And this week, as we were trying to look within ourselves to find a topic, one fell out of the sky. Not in a good way. I hate to admit that, but I was watching the news, and I don't normally do that these days because that can put you in a bad mood, but. The breaking news of the Minnesota church shooting is what led to this topic this week. And if you're not familiar, this week they had a shooter shoot from the outside into a church, Catholic church school, into the windows while the students were in there taking their mass. They had just started back to school. These are 8, 9, and 10-year-olds. Unfortunately, an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old lost their life. 14 other children were injured, 17 total were injured. And it just led me to kind of get on my knees and really start praying so hard for that community, those families, those teachers. I can't imagine. I have an 8-year-old. Matt has children that age, and our kids are in school, and it's just so hard to fathom what they're feeling and what they're going through. So certainly want to send prayers and love and comfort to them. But the reason the power of kindness comes up is because you watch all the information unfold, and it comes down to just a person just having hate in their heart. They're just feeling hate. They're for whatever reason, how they got there. I don't want to get into that too much, but the person just felt so enraged and so hateful and had such hate in their heart that they felt like this was their only way out is to go shoot up a church. I don't understand it. As a human, my mind won't go there and understand it. As a human, my mind was very angry at this person, very, very just distraught at this person. And still am a little bit, right? I mean, I'm still kind of angry at this act and the way it went. But I think what it boils down to, guys, is people react to things very differently. We never know what people are feeling, what they're going through, the challenges they have in their life. Again, we talk about Matt and I pulling this podcast together. We were both going through something in our lives that a lot of people didn't really understand where we were at and still don't. I think we got to learn to accept others and their views and their beliefs. I think there's a balance between, saying, oh my God, that person's this, I don't like him. Why would we do that? The good thing about living in this country, I believe, is we have a platform here to be whatever we want to be, believe whatever we want to believe, but the respect has still got to be there. It's okay to disagree, right? It's okay to not like somebody. And I think if we've done that more, maybe people don't harbor this hate and it doesn't manifest into what we see a lot of, and I'll let you comment on that, man. I'm just, it was really, really, really sad to see this again this week.
Yeah, when it gets to the point, we're all guilty of it, of disliking someone. I don't want to use the word hate, but there have been times where I have disliked somebody or whatever for certain reasons. But when it gets to those extreme points, I think we kind of got to take a step back and really look at what the word says. And we're going to share some verses about, kindness and just caring for each other. And we can disagree, we can dislike each other, but we can still be kind and we can move forward. And I think when it gets to a point like this situation that has occurred, I think we've got to revert back to the Bible. We've got to lean on God's word to find strength. We talked about it last week, strength through this struggle for that community, for that church, but ultimately kindness as we move forward to help prevent some of these situations before they even happen.
And two, you talk about uh, we've seen this so many times where these things happen, but I don't know that I've ever seen it to the extent of a church and kids. If you can't find safety in a church as a child, where are we safe at? And I think that's the reason this hit me so hard this time, because I can go back and I remember when Columbine happened I think it was '93. First time you really heard of a school type shooting. And they just kind of over the years, we've been in these situations where we've had to see this come across the news, and communities have had to deal with this, and not downplaying any of those, because I think anytime that there's a mass shooting is horrific. It is absolutely horrific. But to know that it happened in a place of worship, right, with children in there, to me is kind of a gut blow of gut blows. Those children were praying in the pews, and bullets come flying in the windows, and there's no warning. There's no way to stop that. You're just at God's mercy, and you have to believe that there's a plan. We believe in a merciful God, and these are those moments that make you ask why. These are those moments that's going to test your faith and test your trust, and all that. And again, man, I believe if there's anything that we can take from this moment is just be kind to one another. Always respect one another. We've lost the value of human life and to understand what people are going through. So I think we got to get back to that, man. We just got to be kind. And if you do that, again, I think it manifests into something beautiful.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. And I'm really excited to get to share some of this scripture and share some of these words with what you have now dubbed our armor heads, our faithful listeners, man. I love that. Our armor heads have reached over 50,000 views now on Facebook. So they are, the life of this. So we hope that you guys are spreading the word through our mouths. But, this is Armor Up Athletics. So we always are going to have a sports connection. So I think I'll start there. And what I really wanted to do with the power of kindness is I want you to think about those big time moments, those big touchdowns, those half court shots that go in, or maybe a walk off home run, or an overtime PK goal for you soccer guys, right? Those moments are big, but sometimes the moments that stick with us aren't necessarily on the scoreboard, right? It might be when a player helps an opponent up, good sportsmanship. It might be when a coach puts his arm around a player that just made a mistake and loves them up and gives them words of encouragement. It might be when a teammate gives encouragement to another teammate, right? So I talk to our kids all the time, like, we won a lot of games in high school. I lost 2 football games in my 4 years in high school. But the moments when I talk to my boys back that I played with, we talk about the bus rides. We talk about the pregame meals. We talk about the stuff that happened after practice. So it's bigger than the wins. It was the kindness. It was that brotherhood. It was that bond that we like to share. So those little acts of kindness often speak louder than the highlight reels, right?
Yeah,
In
absolutely.
sports, toughness is important, right? We have to be tough, especially in the game of football, which we're in right now. But so is character. So kindness is one of the most powerful ways we can show our true character on and off the field. And I've got 2 verses I'm going to share for our scripture on kindness. The first one's Ephesians 4:32. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you. Okay, so we have to be kind to each other. We have to forgive each other. None of us are perfect, right? And I tell our players, like, if they're yelling at each other because they missed a block or they missed a tackle, or they dropped a pass or they threw an interception, like, none of us are perfect, guys. Like, let's move forward. Let's show some compassion. Let's be kind. Let's speak words of encouragement to our teammates and move forward, right? Because there's no way that we can't forgive our teammate and then expect them to forgive us when we do something crazy. So
Right.
be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you. And in Ephesians, Paul connects kindness with forgiveness, right? Real kindness is more than just being nice. It's showing compassion even when someone doesn't deserve it. In sports, this happens a lot. It's like forgiving your teammates. It's for dropping the pass, for missing the block, for fumbling the football, whatever it is. It's giving grace to an opponent who just trash talked you, who's talking junk to you all night long. Hey, man, shake hands after it and move forward, right? That's that being kind. The second
Yeah.
verse I'm going to share is Colossians 3:12. Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. I really love the image here. Kindness is something you put on, right? We talk about armor up athletics. We want to put on our armor every day. Let's put on kindness. Like part of our uniform is kindness. So let's every day we step out, we decide to wear our spirituality. Like that's what armor up athletics is. That's what the foundation was when we first started this whole deal, Phillip. But just like an athlete, they're not going to take the field without their jersey on. We as Christians, as believers, should not step into the world without putting on kindness every single day.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. And those are two great verses that when you sent me just automatically hit me. It's like, wow, that, it's amazing how these things can come to us. I went with two this week, a little bit, simpler. One is kind of the golden rule, Luke 6:31. A lot of people probably know this one. Do unto others as we will have done to you, right? Very simple verse, one that I've loved and I grew up on. The principle is very, very simply, it wants you to love your enemies, to do good to them, lend to them without expectation of return. And I think that's the part of that verse that we really have to understand. To me, it's kind of a stern verse. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But when you do unto others, you can't expect anything in return for that. You're doing it because you're being kind, and that's the type of person you are. You're not doing it with any kind of sentiment that needs to come back to you. Even if it doesn't come back to you, you still need to continue to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So that was a really good verse that came to me right off the bat. And then my second verse this week was Zechariah 7:9. Administer true justice, show mercy and compassion to one another. Do not oppress the widow or the fatherless, the foreigner or the poor. Do not plot evil against each other. It kind of just says it, in there, what it's asking. I mean, people are commanded to practice fairness and righteousness in their dealings with others. It's just, to me, I've never read Zechariah that much. That's one of those verses or one of those books that just never jumped out to me, even as a child growing up. You don't hear a lot about Zechariah, but it's a very good book. And this verse to me, do not plot evil against each other, basically says what we're talking about, right? We should not go out with malice in our heart and plot evil against each other, no matter what we feel about somebody. And I can tell you right now that my family is going through a very tough time in a situation that I can't go into detail on, but I'm trying my hardest to not get into plotting evil, any of that. I'm trying to lean on God's word and do what he asks me to do. And I know that whatever happens is going to work out, right? But I think if we follow a couple of these verses, if we get in our Bibles and read these things, man, every day when I'm getting, I say angry or off track or, distracted, all you do is pick up your Bible and it'll bring you right back to it. There's so many good, encouraging, positive messages in there that if you just put your faith in it, it'll keep you right where you need to be, So that was mine this week, Matt. There's probably 1,000 more we could dig into.
Yeah. There's a lot of good verses in that in the good book about kindness, man. There's no doubt. And the thing that I wanted to bring out too, Philip, is kindness. It doesn't have to be a dramatic show. It doesn't have to be some big old thing that you put out there. Like sometimes it's just a small word of encouragement. Like it's just holding the door open for somebody, because you never know what type of day they're going through. And maybe
That's
you
right.
saying, you opening the door at the gas station and saying good morning as they walk in, like maybe that changes somebody's day. Like you never know what's going on. Just like the situation we discussed earlier, you never know where those acts of kindness can come from and what they can do for somebody. So sometimes we just need to go out of our way, and you don't really have to go out of your way to do something as small as that.
Well, our ultimate coach of kindness is God. And Jesus was the quarterback of showing kindness, right? I mean, every story that you read of Jesus in the Bible, it was him doing some kind of act of kindness, no matter what was coming against him, and the world was against him. no matter how many acts of kindness that man showed,
Yeah.
they were still against him until they finished him off and he decided to say, "It is finished." He was still showing kindness on the cross to the thief.
Yeah.
So, again, QB1 right there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean,
he
there
learned that playbook to perfection.
there's so many acts of kindness, and you kind of mentioned some of those there, but like he fed the hungry crowds. He didn't
Yeah.
have to do that.
Nope.
He forgave those that nailed him on the cross. Didn't have to do that. And I
Nope.
think sometimes, especially in sports, um, we can equate kindness to weakness, which I don't believe that. I think that it's strength under control, right?
Right.
It's being under control with your emotions. In sports, the strongest player isn't the one who explodes in anger. It's the one that stays calm, shows grace, and lifts others up, his teammates, his coaches, his opponents sometimes, right?
Yep. And the cool thing was, I teach all my children to kind of, obviously we're competitive. When we get on the field, we're competitive. We want to win. We want to, play our best games. We want to do all that. But one of the acts I saw Jagger do last year, they had a really, really hard fought game. They pulled out the win, and one of the kids from the other team was sitting on the field crying, and he walked all the way back across the field, helped the kid up, and patted him on the back. And you know, I think at that moment I kind of knew that he's hearing me a little bit, that he's hearing what we're trying to do, and that's not credit to me by no means. That's just me passing down the words and the acts that I want us to live by, which come from the Bible. I think that anytime that you go on the field, you got to be a dog, right? You got to have a dog mentality, but you got to understand that it's a game, right? You play hard, you play fair, you play competitive. If you don't get the outcome you want, you shake the opponent's hand, you show grace, you show kindness, and you move on to the next battle.
Yeah.
It does get in. I was on the sidelines this week doing the chains for Marlboro County and Sherrall, and I'm gonna tell you, buddy, that was some competition. No, neither one of those teams wanted to lose that game, and you could feel it. But there was some tension during the game. Obviously, very high competitive game. But at the end, it was good to see them line up and go all the way across the field and shake each other's hands and get out of there with some kindness and some respect. So
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, for sure. And, last thing we wrap up here on the devotional side of things, I do want to say, kindness is contagious, just like a negative attitude at work or at home or on your football team or soccer team or whatever. That negative attitude can be contagious as well. So we want kindness to be something that you spread. And you don't, again, it doesn't have to be nothing crazy. So I did want to issue a quote locker room challenge, Phillip, for everybody, for all of our armor heads that tune in and see and listen and share and like. All you guys are amazing. Thank y'all so much. But the locker room challenge for the week, I want you to do one of these things. Every day, look for one intentional way to show kindness, whether that be holding the door, saying good morning, saying thank you, talking to somebody at the gas station that you wouldn't have normally talked to. You never know what they're going through. The second one, you can, if you guys that are going to school, at school, you might have to sit with somebody that, normally eats alone. You see that kid over off to the side that doesn't have any friends at the lunch table with them. I challenge you guys that go to school to go sit with somebody that you wouldn't normally sit with and just start up a conversation. On the field, at practices, or this next Friday night in the games, encourage a teammate instead of criticizing them. Every game, every single game that you watch, high school, college, not one single game this weekend was perfect, where everybody made every tackle, everybody caught every ball that they were supposed to catch, right? So encourage that teammate instead of criticizing them. And then for you guys that are just like us, if your parents or husbands at home, the challenge may be doing something for your family without being asked, right? I'm going to challenge myself, and my wife's going to watch this Wednesday when it comes out. I'm going to take out the trash without her asking this week. Okay. And that's going to be tough, because as soon as that last piece of trash touches the top rim, like she's like, Matt, let's go. And so I'm going to have to probably get it when it's about 85% full.
You have
But
to get in there early.
yeah, that's going to be my challenge. So all of the armor heads out there, find a way. This week, find a way to show someone kindness. Well, it doesn't have to be anything crazy, anything dramatic. You don't have to make no video or post or share about it, but just do something for somebody else. What do you think, Phillip?
I love it, man. I do. I think it's a great idea when you're talking about encouragement like that, I think that's huge. Anytime that you can, show encouragement and kindness is big, because this is my thing. When you practice football and you're a coach, when that kid messes up, he knows he messed up, right? You don't have to scream your head off at him. He knows he messed up. Now, if he's messed up 42 times on the same pattern, I get it. I know coaches are going to lose their mind, right? I played for some pretty hard coaches in my time. But I think we forget that those kids know that they're trying to be perfect. They're trying to please you. They don't want to go out there and make mistakes. So I think encouragement is the key to everything we do in life for everybody. Nobody wants to walk out the door and fail, right? Nobody wants to walk out the door and say, you know what? I think I'm going to just face plant in life today. They don't want to do that. So your goals and your challenges, I think, are a great reminder to people that, because it gets lost. Being kind gets lost. We're on social media, we're on our phones, we bump into somebody, we don't even say excuse me anymore. So I think that stuff's got to come back. So I love the challenges, man. I think it's great. I got to figure out something I can challenge myself. Well, since you're talking about that, I've been at home for a few weeks. I could probably wash the dishes tomorrow. So there we go. At least load the dishwasher.
At least load the dishwasher. Man, I think these are some great verses, and obviously we'll wrap that up at the end. But locker room challenge. We talked about a locker room challenge. Let's turn it over to some football now. Let's see how things went this past week in our local games and some of our college games. We'll recap. I do want to say this before we start the recap, Phillip. We picked 2 local high school games of the week and 2 college games of the week. And this week, now last week we kind of got messed up on one of them, but this week all 4 games were 7-point ball games, were 1-score football games. So maybe we know a little bit about football, Phillip. What do you think?
I think we hit it on the head this week, and I knew
Yeah.
Some of these games were going to be tough. They were fun to watch.
Yeah.
I watched every one that I could, and kept up with your game as we were in our game. But man, it's so fun to watch. I know some of these kids are disappointed because they didn't get the outcome, but I don't think there's a team on either side of the games we picked that can hold their head down this week.
Yeah.
They played great. It was great games.
Yeah, for sure. So local games. Last week I said Central Lamar. I was looking at the schedule. They actually had a bye week. Central and Lamar is this week. So that will be a local game to watch for this week. I did want to say that, looking at the schedule, I didn't realize that Central had a bye week that fast, but it is what it is. So they play Lamar this week. So that's something to watch for this week for sure. Another one we called out last week, Chesterfield and Great Falls. Chesterfield wins 28-14. Congratulations to Nick Dixon, his first win as the head Golden Ram. Could not be more happy for him and proud of him.
I saw him I think it was Thursday night of last week, run into him and we were talking and wished him good luck, man. So that's awesome. Glad he got that first win. I know that's a lot of relief off of him and stress off his back, and good for that team and those players to get that win. So
yeah,
super proud of them and that team up there.
Yep. And then another one we called out last week, Scotland, Richmond. Richmond wins 36-21. Phillip, they're very good. Okay, they're a very good football team.
They normally are.
We made some mistakes. We had the ball twice inside the 10-yard line and came away with no points both times, and also had a interception that was returned for a touchdown. So, it's a 21-point swing, and when you're playing somebody the caliber of Richmond, you've got to play a perfect football game. So, it's something for us to learn from. They're not in our conference anymore, so it's an early game that we can learn from and move forward. So, I don't think that's going to define our season. Obviously, the kids are hurt and the pride and, the rivalry and all that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because it's a week 2 game. So your pick for game of the week, Sherrall, Marlboro County. Marlboro County wins 27-20. As you mentioned earlier, you had a firsthand experience. They gave you field access, baby.
Yes, I had full access. Coach Poole and Coach Bird were short a couple chain crew members. So Jagger and I volunteered to help. And I didn't know that the chain crew was so much work. The clip that goes on the chain that marks the true spot, somehow that got handed to me. and I think I did more work than anybody. So I told Coach Bird he owes me at least a Sherrall High shirt or something because I worked my butt off in that game. But as far as the game went, look, I couldn't ask for a better game. I mean, both in the trenches, we were hitting hard. We got off to a sloppy start, got the snap over our head, lost the football, spotted them the ball at the 2, obviously they pushed it in. But they didn't quit. Nick had another punt return this week. It was unreal. Caden Thomas was a trooper. I mean, he had to run a little bit. They're big up front, so they were putting a little pressure on us. But to battle back in there and keep that game where it was, we were down 2 scores at one time, and we could have easily folded. But the second half, we only gave up 7 to them. Come back and ended up losing 27-20. But you don't see this a lot in 2A high school football. Daniel Rhodes is kicking 40-plus yard field goals with plenty of leg to spare, which he is a soccer player. Love the kid to death. He's a big guy. But I wanted to give him a shout out, man. He hit some clutch field goals from deep to be, again, 2A high school football. So I hope there's some scouts out here looking at that guy. But overall, like you said, I don't think this hurts Sherrall. Coach Poole said on our show he schedules a lot of tough opponents. And if we can play Marlboro County that tight, I think come region play we'll be really, really, really good.
Yeah. Marlboro County, a lot of talent, bigger size school than Sherrall. Just to see them fight, and we've mentioned it before, Sherrall's going to be pretty good this year. Marlboro County going to be pretty good this year. So I think that was a very good matchup for both teams to learn from and grow from. And I know Sherrall will bounce back from that. And, Coach Poole talked about how he schedules and why he scheduled these big games up on the front end of the schedule. And, last year he did the same thing, and it paid off for him in region play. And then they rolled through the region. So I think you could definitely see that happening from Sherrall this year again. And then the game of the week pick for me was Darlington and North Myrtle Beach. Darlington 14, North Myrtle Beach 7. We'll talk. Well, I'm going to get firsthand accounts from our guests this week on that one. I'm not going to talk too much about it. I watched the highlights and talked to some coaches over there. But really super excited for Darlington and what they're doing at 2-0 now.
Yeah. Super proud of them. Happy for Jamie and those guys that's been over there putting that program and building that program like they've done. Excellent job. Super glad to see that they pulled that out and where they are, man.
And we'll move into some college recap real quick before we get to our special guest. But our college recap, we called out 5 games last week. The first one that I want to talk about, South Carolina, Virginia Tech. Is South Carolina a playoff contender?
Well, they started slow. The first half was a tick. I don't boring. I know some South Carolina fans are going to take that in a bad way, but it's not. It was just either both teams are trying to find themselves. They couldn't get anything going, and then of course, Beamer ball, right? Special teams
touchdown.
Special teams touchdown. What a moment.
I think I'm a Gamecock fan. Been one my whole life. It's been a rough life, but I do think that defense, the defense of the Gamecocks, I mean, they are loaded. They played really, really good defense. Only gave up 11 points, a bunch of field goals in there. Scored. He's fun to watch. I think the question mark lies in the offensive line. Lenore Sellers, if he has time and he has just a little bit of time, he's going to make things happen. A South Florence grad right here locally, right? But if he has a little bit of time and a little bit of protection, he's going to make some things happen. He's got some great playmakers on the outside with Nick Harbor. I think if they can, fix some of the offensive line play, and I'm sure that they're talking about that as we speak, but I think they could be a playoff contender. And that's partially a homer pick. That's fine. I'm good with it. I will take that.
I think the only thing that stands in their way is probably similar to Florida is their schedule.
Yeah.
They have a brutal schedule.
Yeah, the schedule's
so they're going to have
tough.
to play some really good football. Can they? Absolutely. They're built to do it. They got playmakers. They got, studs on that team. But you got to stay healthy and you got to get through that brutal schedule, man. It's tough that we have to travel that road, but that's life in the SEC, I guess.
Yeah.
Some people's not going to like that comment, but it's just the truth.
It is. It is true. It is true. Another one we called out, North Carolina State and East Carolina. I thought East Carolina kept that a lot closer than what all
Yeah.
those Wolfpack fans thought it was
Couple
going to
two
be.
all boys playing there. Xavier McIver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
North Carolina State won 24-17. East Carolina, much improved, or the question mark is North Carolina State just not that good? We don't know yet. First game of the year.
First
We'll
game of the
see.
year, yeah.
And then the third one that we called out, Coastal against Virginia. The boys from the beach did not have their best showing. They lost 48-7. I will shout out Virginia. Like my starting center and our fraternity president is at Virginia, coaching there now, and they had a good game plan. Obviously, 48 points scored on offense. So shout out to Coach Joey Ork up there. He's a great man and a great football coach. Let's
Yep.
get to the two games of the week that we picked here. 7-point games on both sides, just like the high school picks. Your pick was LSU and Clemson. LSU wins 17-10. Be careful, or your phone is about to start buzzing when you say this.
Look, that game was everything I thought it was going to be. Right. I think Clemson's a very, very, very good football team, and they showed it. They went nose to nose with possibly, and this is hard for me to say, possibly one of the best teams in the nation. LSU has done a complete turnaround from last year. Their defense is finally legit, because if they'd had a defense last year, they probably would have done better than what they did. Nussmeier looked a lot better this year, and it's just, again, it's so hard for me to give LSU credit, but
yeah,
I would dare say they're right where they need to be ranked after this first game. Clemson shouldn't fall too far. I know the rankings can be different, but there's nothing for them to hang their heads about. They had some opportunities. It was a hard-nosed football game, a lot of hitting going on, but everything I thought it would be. I really did think LSU was probably going to pull that out in a close one. So fun to watch. I know my Clemson fans are sad, but nothing to hold their head down about, because nothing but the road in front of them can lead them all the way to the ACC championship and a playoff berth. So season's not over for them by no means, and I think they proved that they can hang with anybody in the country.
Yeah. I agree with all that, Phillip. And then the last game of the week, my game of the week pick, Texas, number 1 Texas, number 3 Ohio State. I don't know if you can really call it an upset, but a 3 did beat a 1, so it is technically an upset. Ohio State wins 14-7. Arch Manning looked rusty to me, The hype is there, and don't get me wrong, he's good. We're not going to sit here but it's the first game of the year for everybody. Everybody's got to learn. Everybody's got growing pains they got to go through. Ohio State got some really good playmakers, played phenomenal on defense the whole day, only allowing 7 points. So 2 low-scoring games, a lot less scoring in both of our game of the week picks there than I would have imagined.
Yeah, and I think, too, for Ohio, I think where I was so impressed with Ohio State, 2 new coordinators, right? New defensive scheme. They lost 14 players from last year. And they come back, and their defense was just as dominant. And I really think that might have been what messed Arch Manning in Texas up, because they've never really seen this. That was Matt Patricia there, right? From the he was at New England.
Yeah.
So he run a lot of blind coverages, and I don't think Arch was picking it up, man. He was just not seeing it. And again, hey, that's that first good start on the road in the shoe. Come on, he. That's a tough game to walk into and expect to be a Heisman winner on the first day. So.
Yeah. But I do think, man, I got to say it again. I think the 4 games we picked, to pick 4 games that came down to 1 score, that was pretty lucky on our part, I guess.
Hey, Texas got stopped on the goal line, so
Yeah.
They had opportunities.
And let's move into this upcoming week. College football takes a little dip because everybody played their big games, and then some people are going and dropping and playing some FCS opponents or whatever. But I did have 4 that I wanted to call out. And the first one, Iowa at Iowa State. Iowa State's 22. Iowa State rivalry. Iowa's 1-0. Iowa State's 2-0 now. I think this is going to be a big matchup to see if Iowa State really deserves that number 22 ranking.
Yeah.
The second one, Virginia at NC State, an early season ACC matchup there for them. Virginia obviously had a great showing, scored a lot of points against Coastal. NC State, kind of struggled a little bit against East Carolina. So we'll see how they match up there in that one. The third one I'll call out, number 14, Michigan at number 18, Oklahoma. I think this is a big one to take a look at this week. And then the fourth one I'll call out, number 11, Arizona State at Mississippi State. Both teams 1-0 at this time.
Okay. All right. Well, the Michigan game's interesting. Oklahoma, Michigan. That's nice.
Michigan, Oklahoma. That's your pick.
I think I may have to go with that one because that's an SEC Big Ten matchup.
Yeah.
Even though Oklahoma's new, but they weren't as good last year, so they're moving. What they got them ranked? You said 18.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see if that's real.
Well, if that's your pick, I'm going to go with the Iowa State matchup, early rivalry matchup. 22 Iowa State's 2-0. They did play that week 0.
Yeah, they played week 0.
Iowa's at 1-0. So we'll see how that matchup turns out. And we're moving on to our high school sports, our local games to look out for. We mentioned it earlier, Central, Lamar, a good matchup there. I think both teams are ready for this matchup. So Central coming off of a early season bye, like we mentioned earlier, but excited to see where that one goes. Number 2, Darlington at Lugolf Elgin. Darlington on a hot streak, 2-0. We'll talk to Coach Jamie Johnson here in a little bit, but really excited for that game to see how that one turns out. Sherall at Conway. I know you local Braves fans, especially you, Phillip, are excited about that matchup.
I am, and I think they're coming to us, aren't they?
Yeah, are they coming this way?
Yeah, they're coming here.
Okay,
we're gonna be at home. Great game last year. Kind of had some self-inflicted wounds, so really looking for a good game this week. Obviously, Conway's a very good program, so we'll see. I'm excited. Again, we'll be on the chains again.
If they're coming this way, Phillip Leviner on the chains, right?
Yes, I'm that guy now. I'm the head chain guy.
The clip man. The fourth matchup that we want to talk about, Dillon and Wilson. Okay. Two very good football programs. Wilson High School, a brand new head coach there at Wilson High School, played at Presbyterian College, home of the Fighting Matt Quinns. We were teammates, me and Coach Wilson. It's crazy. Coach Wilson, Brian Wilson, is the head coach at Wilson. So every time I see some highlights of them, it's like mind blowing that his last name, like that would be like if I worked at Quinn High School. I think that would be kind of cool. But last week, Wilson took a tough overtime loss to Gilbert. But year one for Coach Wilson, turning things around over there. They are 1-1, tight ball game to Gilbert. I think that's a sneaky good game to watch out for. And while we're talking about Coach Wilson, I do have to shout out the Presbyterian Blue Hose. This weekend, they beat the number 11 ranked FCS team, Mercer, on their home field, 15-10. Biggest win in program history. So on PC.
Nice.
To victory. Garnet and blue. We're here for you and everything. You do Presbyterian. All right. That's enough. The last one, South Florence and Northwestern. I think this will be game of the week for every media outlet around, probably statewide as well. What do you think there, Phillip?
That's a huge one, man. We were talking last night a little bit, but that's going to be two heavyweights, man. I can't. That's probably my game of the week for sure.
I think that's a good pick. South
if
Florence.
You won't let me pick Sherall every week.
No, you can't. You can't do that. But, South Florence did go down to Somerville and beat them, in overtime, last second win. Northwestern, a big dog. I think this is two contenders for a state championship early season matchup right here. South Florence at home. So that'll be Phillip Leviner's game of the week, South Florence, Northwestern. Going to be a big one there. Expect a good crowd. Expect some really, really dang good football there in that football game. And then my pick for game of the week, I'm riding the hot hand, Phillip. I am. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it for the second week in a row. Darlington, Lugolf Elgin.
I like it.
Darlington, Lugolf Elgin. I think.
I can't wait to talk to Coach, and I know he's excited about what's going on in his program. And I mean, why not?
Yeah.
They're every week
And
they seem to pull it out. So
And we're not in the business of making picks and predictions and projections, okay? But I do think it's going to be a good game, and obviously I'm rooting for those guys and hoping that they can keep this thing rolling in the black and purple. Man, I think we do have some really good high school games this week. You know, the college games kind of dipped down a little bit, but again, we're not going to sit here and pick them. Only Lee Corso can do that. By the
that's
way, shout out to Lee Corso. Last appearance on College Game Day. I feel like a piece of my childhood's gone, Phillip.
I know, man. It was so fitting the way they did that. It was such a good episode. If you're a college football fan, you're up at 10 o'clock watching him, watching the game day, getting prepared, getting your food ready to cut on the grill. And you always wait for that headgear to come out. And, being a Florida fan 65 times, I think they said he had picked Florida. That's unreal.
What
Especially
was
being a coach from Florida State.
Yeah. What was crazy was, on his last ever episode before he enjoys his well-deserved retirement, he went 6 for 6 on his picks, Phillip.
Sure
Hit
did.
every single one, including the
Everything.
Florida State pick over Alabama. Like he was the
Yep.
only person in America that probably picked that game that way. But went 6 for 6. But you know, sad day. But the end of a era for a legend. Really, just wanted to give that shout out. And if you looked at like Kirk Herbstreit and their interactions over the years, we're talking about kindness and how we need to help each other and give those encouraging words to each other. You can't tell me those two guys right there. And I know Kirk kind of looked at Lee as a father figure, but he helped him through it, especially in his later years.
Yeah, he did, man. He was right there with him the whole time. And the tribute they did with Kurt kind of narrating it, it was a little almost a tear jerking moment there because you could tell Lee had kind of declined. Still able to pick him though, man. I was, when he picked Florida State, I'm like, he's picking with his heart. No way that game's gonna hit. And dang if it didn't. And then his first pick was Ohio State with the headgear, and his last pick was Ohio State with the headgear, and they pulled it out. So
Very fitting way for it to
it's
end.
almost like you scripted that. You
Yeah,
couldn't have wrote that a better ending for him. So
yeah, no doubt.
it was awesome.
So, in our recap here for college games, okay, college games of the week, I picked Iowa at Iowa, number 22, Iowa State, both teams undefeated. And then you went with number 14, Michigan, at number 18, Oklahoma. On the high school side of things, South Florence, Northwestern for you. South Florence playing at home, two heavyweights, big boy battle there. Two teams that have a legit shot at winning a state championship. And then I went with Lugolf Elgin and Darlington High School, the black and purple. I'm really excited to segue that and turn that into our interview with head coach Jamie Johnson. And we are back here live with the head coach of the Darlington Falcons, Coach Jamie Johnson. How you doing, Coach?
Good. How are y'all?
Oh man, we're doing great. We're blessed and thankful that you can join us here today. As we get started, just give us a little bit of your background. A little bit about where you come from, philosophy, style, all that kind of good stuff.
Well, I'm a product of McBee High School, so not too far down the road. But my mom's side of the family is actually from Darlington, so that's how I kind of made the connection here. Went to the University of South Carolina, but have coached all over the state. Time in Columbia, Rich Northeast, Strom Thurmond High School, West Florence, back to Strom Thurmond, Hannah Pamplico High School, and of course now here at Darlington going into season 3.
Coach, I've been on our podcast. I've been a huge fan of Darlington. I've picked you guys as the game of the week before. We've talked about the changes you guys have made there under your tenure. Can you speak a little bit about how this season started? Some key players, the matchups that you've had, things like that.
Well, we're 2-0, so it's always nice to have that win streak going. I think this is only the second time we've had multiple years that they've been 2-0, and the last time I'm pretty sure you were on staff. I think that was under Coach Lampkin. So, so we're trying to keep it going. I thought our defense played spectacular on Friday. The quarterback against Goose Creek ran for like 270 yards, and I think we held him to 60-something Friday night. So I thought they played spectacular. On that side, Christian Charles has been a monster at linebacker. He's got 26 tackles already, and 6 of those are for loss. So he's also forced a fumble. So he's been a monster inside. We've also created, turnovers on the back end as well. So Khalil Green's a stud for us at safety. He's got a pick. Previous Brown stepped into the corner role, and he's got 2 interceptions already through 2 games. So they can keep doing that. I feel pretty good. Offensively, it runs through our quarterback. Jalen Augustus is pretty special. How nobody's offered him, I'm going to be honest, it's beyond me. I mean, me and you have talked about that, but he's pretty special. It's kind of running back by committee right now. Malik Duncan's had a good year so far, and then Deron Ross as well behind him. But it all runs through our big right guard, big Jaden Green. He's ranked, I know, on the prep red zone offensive lineman for the state, weighing in at 360. He's a load, so we try to run behind him a lot. So he's been pretty special for us so far too.
Yeah, we had mentioned Augustus a little bit, and I watched you guys over at the Dillon Jamboree. Was really impressed by him and the things that y'all were doing against Dillon. Was impressive, and I saw some big things coming. But the title of our podcast, Armor Up Athletics, based on Ephesians 6:11, put on the full armor of God so that you can protect yourself against the devil's evil plans. Coach, how do you armor up daily as you attack the day? I know high schools, we've been in them. They can be different. They can be crazy. So what do you do daily to armor up?
Well, the first thing I do, I start the day at the gym. So I'm up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym. To me, it's quiet time. And that's when I do my devotion. Like I'll ride the bike or whatever else, and I make sure I do the devotion on my phone. Usually the first thing when I get to school is I myself have a prayer journal. I'm trying to be more intentional about, writing my thoughts down, good, bad, prayers, things I need. And I actually, counseled one of our players last week, dealing with some mental stuff. And, he's got some personal stuff going on. And I actually ended up buying him a notebook to do it himself. And he's found it helpful. So I can notice a difference even since last Tuesday. So, I think if you get in, those thoughts, I think you start out on that positive mindset. Just, take time, just, you and the Lord, trying to get it together. I'm big on the worship music at the gym. So I have a list created, and even, people say what they want to or whatever. I don't force them, but on Wednesdays, actually our playlist for the weight room and practice is called Worship Wednesday. So we've incorporated that every Wednesday, and they actually look forward to it. And to be honest, it's one of the most positive practices we usually have, because it's all upbeat, worship music, and they're fly around. And hopefully, usually it ends with a victory meal anyway. So that might be part of it too. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Phillip?
Yeah, again, Coach, thank you for joining us. Matt's talked super highly of you since, we've known each other. Matt and I go back a few years. He married into the family, luckily, so we claimed him.
Yeah.
But no, he spoke really highly of you and the progress you're making. And the last 2 weeks, he said it, Darlington every week. And he's got me as a believer now. So you got a new fan for sure. I love what you're doing. But the question I have is, what lessons from football, discipline, perseverance, teamwork, has carried over into your spiritual walk?
Definitely the discipline aspect. I mean, I say all the time, we talk about, and we've equated it, if you haven't read, Make Your Bed. It's fantastic. And it talks about starting those small tasks every morning, that discipline aspect. If you start with the smallest thing, it's going to lead to another task completed and another task and another task. So that's what we talk about. Like, if you're not disciplined enough to get up and get in the Word, or, start that prayer journal or whatever else, then you're not going to be disciplined enough to do anything else kind of the rest of the day. And it's about priorities. So, me personally, I'm going to be honest, several years ago, I had my priorities out of whack. I think that football probably was at the foremost of it. Then it was probably family, then faith. And it took kind of basically an anxiety attack against our rival Johnsonville when I was at Hannah Pamplico. I skipped my devotion that week every day to get more film. I skipped church on that Sunday to game plan for them and did everything in my power. We scored 56 points and we still lost because we fumbled the kickoff on the very last. We ran it all the way back to their 20 and we fumbled it. So, I had an anxiety attack about it, and hey, it opened my eyes that I tried to do it myself without my faith first, and look where that got me. It still wasn't good enough. So I wanted to make sure that, my priorities are always going to be in line now. So, and I think it took football to kind of get my priorities back in order too.
That's
Man,
powerful.
Yeah, that is. And speaking of that, make your bed. I literally just shared that with my son this morning. So crazy how that works. I think I've seen it before. I think it's one of the most powerful things in the world. But I shared that with my son this morning. So that's good stuff. But one other question I have is, obviously I talk about this. Matt knows you guys have a great responsibility to develop young men, right? And to be in that locker room and to be around those guys from different and diverse backgrounds. So what advice do you give these young athletes who want to chase big dreams, but to stay grounded in their faith?
Well, we definitely make sure, we got a guy, I just talked about Big Jaden Green. Luckily, he does preaching and stuff on the weekends. He'll speak at these youth rallies and minister or whatever. And we call him Reverend Green. So whenever we say the blessing or get ready for, food on, victory meal or pregame meal or whatever, he leads devotion. So I think it's important to empower them to take ownership of it is number one. So, but then they hear from different walks of life. So today, we do life lessons every Tuesday. So we used to do them on Wednesday before we eat, but now we do them on Tuesday so the JV team could also hear them. So we do life lessons and different people come in. It's ministers or policemen or whoever that they're also getting that from them, the importance of, their faith or, discipline or whatever it may be in their life. And then every Friday we actually have the churches feed us pregame meals. So different churches in the area rotates around. So, there's different walks of life and different religions and all that. So but they're still getting a lot of that, they got to believe in something greater than themselves,
That's right.
Whatever that may be. And it's a fine line, that between in public schools, how you approach it. So, it's my job to give them the vehicle, if they can drive that vehicle, then, and take ownership of it, then I feel like I'm, doing my job.
Yeah,
Nice.
I love that. I love that. So, Coach, the title of this episode is The Power of Kindness. We've kind of issued a locker room challenge to all of our people that have been viewing and listening and liking and all those good things. But we have challenged our people to do one simple act of kindness, to do something. You don't have to go out of your way. It doesn't have to be grand. How can you incorporate that into your life? And would you be willing to challenge the Darlington Falcons on behalf of us to take that challenge?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure we can figure that out. We got kids that'll come. There's a ton that'll hang around for the JV game on Thursday. So I already in my mind, that would be a great opportunity after walkthrough to let's all go do an act of kindness for everybody else. And I think that's big in our program anyway. We try to do things the right way. During teacher work days, we were there trying to help teachers move furniture in their classrooms and different stuff like that. So I love that y'all are challenging it. The Falcons definitely would be part of that. Me, myself, I try to do it. It's not about me. I'm not a bit above the program or nothing like that. It's all about kids. So, I try to just live that out myself. A lot of things, you do for kids and stuff like that. You don't want anybody to know that. That's not what it's about. It's about just doing the right thing. That's how I was raised. So I'll continue to do that, but I'll make sure the Falcons are doing that this Thursday as well.
Love to hear that, Coach. Phillip, you got anything else?
Yeah, just when we talk about the kindness aspect, one other thing that I was talking to my son about this morning, I do a devotion with my children at least once a week. We try to do more. But Luke 6:31 says, treat others as you want to be treated, right? That's the basis of the golden rule. And we talked about this, and I encourage you to share with your players. When you do these acts of kindness, you can't accept anything in return, right? You want to come from the heart. You have to do it. And what I challenged my son this morning is to go to school. He's been having trouble with another kid at school. They're really competitive, so they got in trouble because they were going at each other on the football field. And he doesn't even play football; he's a soccer player. So I told him to go in this morning and be kind to the kid and don't expect anything in return. So do you think when these kids, again, coming from so many different backgrounds and diverse backgrounds, and like we talked with Coach Quinn last week, you don't know when some of these people have had their last meal. You don't know what's going on in their home. So do you think that those type of kids are able, and do you think you can influence them to be kind and to have those acts of kindness? If you're following my question there, because it's really hard for kids to show kindness, especially when they're coming from an environment that may not necessarily be kind.
Yeah, and I think, we've hired great people here. I think everybody on staff, we really try to model that every day. And it could be, help another coach out, help our, groups out or whatever it may be. So we try to take the ownership of everything, like the locker room, different cleanup groups, the field, et cetera, to just get in that mindset of it doesn't have to be my job for me to be nice to someone, but also work towards the same goal. So luckily here, 86% of our school is in below the poverty line. So, or they're in a single parent home, so we try to, if we're modeling that, then hopefully they'll turn around and do that themselves too. And we've talked about that. On Friday, I had a referee, actually, he emailed this weekend about, I just want to brag on a couple of our kids. Their quarterback got tackled out of bounds on Friday, and two of our kids saved him from getting tackled into the net. They grabbed him and tailed him, and they was like, hey, good run. And he ran off back in there, but the official saw that. And I wanted to make sure yesterday I told our team about that, because that's something that's powerful. Friday was a clean game on both sides, and it was just two good teams getting after it. So you wanted to make sure that those are the kind of things we brag about in our program. So, I think it is good it rubs off on everybody else when you're doing it the right way. You either, you get with the program, so they say.
Well, Coach, again, I want to thank you again for coming on here. And if you'll do me one favor, when you walk by Jamie Norris, just slap him in the back of the head and tell him Phillip Leviner said hello. He played high school ball with my brother. I've known Jamie for years. He used to pick on me when I was really little. So.
Well, luckily, he's one of the reasons why I'm here. Luckily the Lord put his name in his spirit whenever he was getting ready to, try to hire coaches. And, I had opportunities before or whatever, and some of them, worked out, some of them didn't or whatever, but I know I'm here because this is where the Lord wants me. So if you're doing it the right way, I think there's kids that need you wherever you go. It don't matter wherever you end up.
Yeah, Coach, we do appreciate you, man. I got two final questions. One, we talk about the power of kindness, and you alluded to it earlier. I started my coaching and teaching career at Darlington, so in 2012, it's got a special place in my heart, and I love the black and purple. I want you to kind of briefly touch on a guy that you've got on your staff that's been there forever. He's probably the real head coach, but the most kind human being I've ever been around, Coach Will Drawdy.
He definitely cares. He lives some Falcon athletics. So he was all upset. He couldn't be at practice yesterday because they were cleaning up from the race. The race was on Sunday. So, but he'll message you and is like, Coach, I'm so sorry I can't be at practice, whatever. But He's here early every day, and he loves it. But he mainly loves the guys. He likes being around the guys, and they involve him in everything and make sure that he's a part of it just like everybody else. So luckily, like even going back, his uncle Stan was a mentor that I leaned on heavily at HP when I first got there, and his wife, Miss Janice Drawdy. So it kind of the connection goes way back. Even then, I'd go sit with Stan once a week just to talk football or the game plan or whatever it may be. So we had that connection even before he was messaging me before I was even the Darlington head coach.
Oh, again, if those of you that don't know him, if you're a Darlington Falcon fan, you definitely know him and the family. But Will Drawdy, one of the kindest people I've ever been around. And Coach, since 2012, I still get the Facebook messages every August that says the Falcons are going to be ready to play this year. It don't matter what sport, y'all are ready.
Yeah.
Last question. Let's preview a little bit. Lugoff Elgin. How do you feel? What are you seeing on film? What do you think? Offensively, defensively, where are we at here?
I think they're a fantastic football team. I know they took a tough one to Camden last week, but Camden's a really good football team as well. So they got two receivers that are good as anybody in the state, number 1 and number 0. So you definitely got to know where they're at all times. So they like to sling it around. Big play ability. I think that's the plan. We got to try to limit the big play. That bit us last year in the matchup here against them, and we haven't beat them since I've been here. So even 2 years ago, I thought we might have had the better talent, but I thought they were a better team together overall. They were tough, they were physical, so I think we've grown the most probably in the weight room. I think Coach Rose does a tremendous job in there. So we're, I think, bigger and faster, stronger. So I'm hoping we can match up with some of those guys. Defensively, they fly around. Coach Little John, he's always going to do a good job on defense. So they line up sound. They play hard. They get to the football. I've challenged our guys that, we need to run the football a little bit better. Throwing wasn't supposed to be our strength, but that's kind of what's won the games for us the last few weeks. So, we got to be able to be, a little tougher up front, be a little more physical up front on the offensive line. But something that was a positive was we protected the football on Friday. I think that's how we won that football game. We had 0 turnovers on offense, and we've been +3 in the turnover to margin the last 2 weeks. So, if you can get 3 turnovers, you got a good shot to hopefully go win the ball game. So we're going to try to limit some of those mistakes and play good defense. If we flip the field, we flip the field and use it to our advantage to try and go pull out a W.
Coach, we appreciate your time, your openness, your honesty, just the way you share and the thoughts and the mentality that you're leading that team with. I could not be more proud to say, they say once a Falcon, always a Falcon. I'm rooting for you. Best of luck to you this week. Let's go 3-0.
Absolutely. I appreciate y'all having me on and all y'all do for football, but more importantly, the kingdom. That's the most important thing. So I appreciate y'all.
Amen.
Hey, thank you for coming on, man. And again, good luck Friday night, Coach.
Thank you.
And we're back to finish out the show. What a great time with Coach Johnson. I think fans, obviously people in that community know him, but now that we can kind of put a spotlight on him and that program, I think y'all see why I've been, sipping the Jamie Johnson Kool-Aid, as I once said in one of our previous episodes. Right, Phillip?
Absolutely. Again, that program has done such a magnificent job over the years, just getting better and better. Again, you used to think of Darlington as the program that comes in that you could probably get a win out of, and they've really changed that whole mentality. They're not that program anymore. I mean, I think he's going to have them on the hunt, man. And 2-0, no telling what this season can do. He's such a great guy as well. So I'm rooting for him. You got a new Darlington fan here, so
yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think like you said, a program that is definitely on the rise and will continue to grow under his leadership. He's added some great coaches around him. Some of those guys that had been there even when I was back there in 2013, adding one of my best friends in Coach Camp from St. Andrews University. He was the head wrestling coach, and now he's there with them as an assistant. Just some great men to lead that program. So really excited to see where they go and how they progress.
Well, again, I think they got the right guy in charge. I think they're doing it the right way. And I wish them nothing but success and to continue on doing what they're doing. And again, I'm going to be watching them. Each week when we do this and we get to interview these coaches, it puts a personal connection in there as well. And you want to see these guys do good because you know how they're leading their programs, how they're leading their life, and how they're developing young men. So definitely love being a part of this and meeting those guys because I really didn't know Jamie until now. So it's awesome to get involved.
Well, that'll bring us almost to the end here tonight, Phillip. Want to kind of recap, go through. We've issued a locker room challenge. We have shared that through social media, really just encouraging you, challenging you to do something kind for someone. Doesn't have to be grand, doesn't have to be crazy. Just find one thing that you can do, minimum one thing. Obviously, you can do as many as you want, but one thing minimum that you can do to be kind. As we talk about the power of kindness this week, I'll recap my two verses that I shared, Colossians 3:12 and then Ephesians 4:32. And I will read Ephesians 4:32 one more time. Ephesians 4:32, be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you. Be kind. Okay. Real kindness is more than just being nice. It's showing compassion, even when people don't deserve it. So I encourage you to take our locker room challenge and get back into the Word if you're not into it, or keep studying the Word if you are into it with us. Prayer wall that Phillip has threw up on our Facebook. If there's something that you don't necessarily want to say out in the public, send a DM. We'll keep everything low key. We'll keep everything private. I know there's some situations that you can't really get into in the public, but we will take those unspoken prayer requests as well.
Yeah, and again, my recap. Obviously, the biggest verse I want people to take away for me is the Luke 6:31. I even did a devotion with my children. I try to do that at least once a week. Usually on Sundays. We missed it, so we were able to do it tonight. Doing to others as you have them doing to you. And again, the biggest part of that is do it without expecting anything in return. Kindness doesn't have to always be, it won't always be reciprocated. That's not what you're doing it for. You're doing it because that's what the Lord wants us to do. That's what the Bible asks us to do, is to be kind, show kindness, show grace, show mercy, and do not expect it to be anything back. You don't want to do it with expectations, right? You just want to do it because it's the right thing to do, guys. And when you do that, it will come back at some point, and you'll see it if you do it for the right reasons. And again, Matt, the locker room challenge is an absolutely outstanding idea. I love it. Guys, please, if you want to share some of your kindness acts on our page, please do it. We'd love to know if you're out there, accepting this challenge and doing it. I try, to tell people hello, good morning, how are you doing? But we're sometimes we're in a bad mood, right? So please take that challenge on and let us know what you think. Again, another great time, Matt. Can't tell you how fun this is.
Yeah, the power of kindness, episode 4, man. What a great time. As always, I'll close us out in prayer, Phillip.
Absolutely.
Dear Lord, we ask that you be with those families that are struggling through these travesties going on around our local community and nationwide as well. Give them strength, show them some compassion, find a way to send people to their lives to give them some kindness. We ask that you help us show kindness to others, show compassion to others. We ask that you push our locker room challenge to all of our viewers, our Facebook family, and our Armor heads. Dear Lord, we thank you for everything you've done for us and everything you're going to do for us. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Armor heads is catchy.
Armor Heads is catching on, Phillip. That is all on you, buddy. I got the locker room challenge. You got the Armor Heads. Thank you, Armor Heads. Like, share, subscribe, comment, do whatever you got to do to help get our word out. Not our word, God's word through our mouths out to the public, to the people that might need to hear it. Phillip, appreciate you, man. Have a good one, everybody.
Love you. See you next week, guys.